Well, unless you were under a rock last week, you probably realized the biggest story in the world was the U.S. elections and the victory of Donald Trump as the next U.S. president. The Senate under Republican control and looking like maybe the House. So obviously, since then, the market has had quite the surge, probably an understatement. So stocks were up big time last week. So got a few things to talk about. Fed cut rates again. So let's get right into it. This is your Market in Minutes report. I'm Mike Minter, Chief Investment Officer for Financial Synergies. And let's look at the actual numbers here. So I've got, and actually let me get into the right mode here. Sorry guys. Let me get into the actual numbers. So 5-day performance. As you can see just across the board, just unbelievable numbers here. In fact, the Russell was up almost 9% just last week. Russell 2000, of course, being the small capitalization stocks in here. But everything up across the board, just stellar performance. And again, this has been a good year even in spite of last week, so this probably doesn't surprise anybody, but the year-to-date performance is just really off the charts here. You got the Nasdaq bumping on 30% here, just across the board, just really by any stretch, just a phenomenal year. Let's take a look at rates. Rates have actually kind of stabilized a bit. They had been on quite a tear, actually going up since the Fed had started cutting rates, which was a little ironic, but started to come down just a little bit last week, of course, with the announcement that they cut rates 0.25% or 25 basis points. Rates did come back a little bit there, so it's nice to see them kind of leveling off and maybe starting to come down a bit. So. Again, stocks surge on election news. That was the story last week for obvious reasons. But it was a shaky start to the week for stocks, as obviously on Monday people were just anxious, I think, in general about the election results and the Fed's interest rate decision. But on election day, stocks rallied broadly before polling even closed, and after the election was called early. The next morning, stocks opened higher and climbed throughout the trading session. So the yield on the 10-year Treasury fell to 4.3%. And then stocks opened higher on Thursday, and the rally picked up momentum after the Federal Reserve approved its second consecutive interest rate cut. Economic news that showed a 2.2% rise in third quarter productivity also helped support the move higher. Stocks finished the week with records. The S&P 500 crossed the 6,000 mark. The Dow breached the 44,000 mark for the first time on Friday, and the S&P and Dow each had their best week in over a year. So again, just really, really good stock market performance across the board. And again, Fed cuts rates as we have discussed, and it was expected. The Fed cut interest rates by 0.25 percentage point at the November meeting, and Fed Jerome Powell signaled some uncertainty about the pace of future rate cuts, which slightly unsettled the markets. I think this is just given the election results. There's some uncertainty and kind of based on where we've seen the markets go from that day, a little bit of uncertainty about the pace of these future rate cuts, which makes sense. He's just being cautious here, so nothing to be concerned about. And then citing a desire to steer between the risk of moving too quickly and perhaps undermining our progress on inflation, or moving too slowly and allowing the labor market to weaken too much. So Powell said the Fed will continue to monitor the economy's progress. So again, just moving cautiously here. Again, not a big surprise given the results of last week and the market movement. So we'll keep you posted on that. What's on deck this week? Key economic data. Just a lot of Fed officials speaking. We've got Neil Kashkari and Patrick Harker speaking on Tuesday. Wednesday, we've got the Consumer Price Index, more Fed officials speaking, and Treasury buyback announcement. That'll be interesting to watch, Treasury bond buybacks. Thursday, Producer Price Index. We've got the Fed Chair Jerome Powell speaking, and weekly jobless claims. Friday, we have retail sales, industrial production, import and export prices, and business inventories. Companies reporting earnings. Earnings season slowing down a bit. Not a huge week for it, but Tuesday we have Home Depot, Shopify, Spotify. Wednesday we have Cisco. Thursday, Walt Disney, Applied Materials, and Brookfield Corporation. So that rounds out the report for this week, guys. Hope you guys had a great weekend and are enjoying this week. We'll report back to you next week on all our findings for this week. Here's all of our contact information as usual. If you haven't, hit that subscribe button down below. I'd love to have you get all our videos as they come out. Beyond that, I'll leave you with a little light disclosure, and you guys have a great week. We'll talk to you soon.